I think in the next universe age, the age of the first outer space level, the third universe age, I don't think there are going to be any creator sons or creative spirits in the local universes. I think they're going to be run by these three beings: the Union of Days, the bright morning star, and the Father Melchizedek. Although I think Michael will always retain the title of Sovereign of Nebuchadnezzar, just as the carpenter carries the title Planetary Prince of Urantia. That's no title for a creator son to carry, but it's a great honor for a human being to carry that title. And don't you imagine that they'll really deck out the streets of Salvington with Japanese lanterns and bunting on those occasions when Michael revisits his capital, coming in from outer space on the way into paradise. This will be occasion for a great jamboree on Salvington. But don't you... The two creators that work themselves out of a job when their local universe is settled in light and life.
Well, they raised their family.
That's right, they've raised their family. Now, the papers speculate, starting on page 241, but mostly on page 242, they discuss the future of the Master Michaels. They're discussing this problem of restricting superfinite creative powers. And they go on to say, it is highly probable that these undisclosed creator powers will remain self-contained throughout the present universe age, but sometime in the far distant future, in the now mobilizing universes of outer space, we believe that the liaison between a sevenfold master son and a seventh stage creative spirit may attain to epsonite levels of service, attended by the appearance of new things, meanings, and values on transcendental levels of ultimate universe significance. Just as the deity of the Supreme is actualizing by virtue of experiential service, so are the Creator sons achieving the personal realization of the paradise divinity potentials bound up in their unfathomable natures. When on Urantia, Christ Michael once said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And we believe that in eternity, the Michaels are literally destined to be the way, the truth, and the life, ever blazing the path for all universe personalities, as it leads from supreme divinity through ultimate absonity to eternal deity finality. And that's the adventure I want to take you folks on today. Let's take a look at page 643. As the frontiers of experiential deity are extended out into the domains of the unqualified absolute, and the domains of the unqualified absolute are defined in paper 12 as the outer space levels. We envision the activity of God the Sevenfold during the earlier evolutionary epochs of these creations of the future. We are not all in agreement respecting the future status of the Ancients of Days and the superuniverse master spirits. Neither do we know whether or not the Supreme Being will therein function as in the seven superuniverses. But we all conjecture that the Michaels, the Creator sons, are destined to function in these outer universes. Some hold that the future ages will witness some closer form of union between the associated Creator sons and divine ministers. It is even possible that such a Creator union might eventuate in some new expression of associate Creator identity of an ultimate nature. But we really know nothing about these possibilities of the unrevealed future.
They always come back to that, don't they?
Yes. We do know, however, that in the universes of time and space, God the Sevenfold provides a progressive approach to the Universal Father, and that this evolutionary approach is experientially unified in the Supreme Being. We might conjecture that such a plan must prevail in the outer universes. On the other hand, the new orders of beings that may sometime inhabit these universes may be able to approach deity on ultimate levels and by absonite techniques. In short, we have not the slightest concept of what technique of deity approach may become operative in the future universes of outer space. Nevertheless, we deem that the perfected superuniverses will in some way become a part of the paradise ascension careers of those beings who may inhabit these outer creations. It is quite possible that in the future age, we may witness outer spacers approaching Havona through the 7 superuniverses, administered by God the Supreme, with or without the collaboration of the 7 master spirits.
What does that signify, without the collaboration?
Well, it might signify that the master spirits are going to be more concerned with outer space. Remember, these master spirits are not finite. These master spirits embody all of the supreme and all of the ultimate and all of the supreme ultimate attributes of paradise deity, but not their absolute attributes. We've reached the end of the present universe age. The papers do some interesting speculating. Find the Supreme Being. You'll recall that God the Father and God the Supreme are not respecters of persons, but they operate differently. With God the Father, you have an each relationship. With God the Supreme, you have an all relationship. No creature will find God the Supreme until all creatures can find God the Supreme. And when we find God the Supreme, we are going to find God as comprehensible to creatures. We can understand the Supreme Being because we are like Him. He had an origin in time. We don't have to go back and say, gee, but it never really happened this way. He has age. The infinite spirit has no age. He's not eternal in the past sense of the word, only in the future sense, as we are. He grew, partly because of the environment of growth and partly because of his own personal efforts to grow. And that's us. That's exactly how we grew. We will be able to portray the Supreme Being because we are flesh of his flesh and bone of his bone. Even as Michael could portray the Father because he is of origin in the Father. I don't say we make a portrayal of the magnitude of Michael, but as creatures we can portray the Supreme Being. The papers speculate that he'll become personally resident on Uversa of Orvanhan because it's the 7th superuniverse. And at that time, they'll take down these iron curtains between the superuniverses and blend them. It is an interesting principle which they follow. It's like the 7 colored races on Earth. They want them to pull apart and work out their own cultures. And then, when they've been upstepped with Adam's blood, they merge them. They're doing that same thing with the superuniverses, aren't they? There are very few beings that can go directly from one superuniverse to another. Very few. The perfected grand universe of those future days will be vastly different from what it is at present. Gone will be the thrilling adventures of the organization of the galaxies of space, the planting of life on the uncertain worlds of time, and the evolving of harmony out of chaos, beauty out of potentials, truth out of meanings, and goodness out of values. The time universes will have achieved the fulfillment of finite destiny. And perhaps for a space there will be rest, relaxation from the age-long struggle for evolutionary perfection. But not for long. Certainly, surely, and inexorably, the enigma of the emerging deity of God the Ultimate will challenge these perfected citizens of the settled universes, just as their struggling evolutionary forebears were once challenged by the quest for God the Supreme. The curtain of cosmic destiny will draw back to reveal the transcendent grandeur of the alluring Absonite quest for the attainment of the Universal Father on those new and higher levels revealed in the ultimate of creature experience. When the Supreme Being appears, the first experiential Trinity can begin to function in the true sense of the word. And that means at the close of the present universe age, or prior to the opening of the next universe age. What is this first experiential Trinity? It has three members: the Supreme Being, the Supreme Creators. Remember we discussed them? The three levels of God the Sevenfold. And the architects of the Master Universe. I think of them as living blueprints. God has a plan for the Master Universe. And these architects are the living embodiments of that plan. They're living, intelligent, administrative, walking blueprints.
Not personal?
They're super persons. They're more than persons. That doesn't mean that we can't deal with them. For example, when we enter the core of the finality, the being who swears us in is the senior architect.
Does it tell how many there are of them?
Yes, yes.
Three?
We'll get to that. We'll do it right now if you want to. You have one architect on the paradise level, three on the Havona level, 7 architects on the super universe space level. Gee, that makes sense, doesn't it? There's 7 super universes. There are 70 architects assigned to the first outer space level. And in one place in the papers, they speak of the observations of their astronomers, not ours. And they say that in the first outer space level, they have already detected 70 major aggregations of matter, any one of which is vastly greater than a super universe. This is big. You remember when they compute the output of paradise gravity? You see, if you can measure how much gravity paradise is exercising, you have measured the mass of creation, haven't you? Since paradise puts out gravity in direct proportion to the mass it has to control. And only 5% of paradise gravity is accountable for in the grand universe. No, 15%, I think. Let's check that. 5%. 95% of the present gravity output of paradise is engaged in controlling material creations outside of the 7 super universes in Havona.
What percent?
95%. You get this on page 132. 15% of the mind gravity of the infinite spirit is unaccountable for, unless it's operating out in outer space. So you got intelligence out there. I think force organizers. Apparently, all of the spirit gravity of the eternal sun can be accounted for by the 7 super universes in Havona. But they hedge a little bit. They say, look, if there were a few spirit beings out there, the number is so small we don't think we could pick it up, see? The inference is that solitary messengers maybe can go out there. Maybe inspired Trinity spirits can go out there. The papers say they're the only two revealed to us who can collaborate with force organizers. Now, I don't believe in numerology, but I do believe that there is a logic to numbers. For example, the Mendelian Ratio is a basic law of chance. We'll get into the Mendelian Ratio because it appears all throughout these papers. As you get these so-called fourth creatures, you know, like the divine executioners and the conciliating commissions. Why were there 7 master spirits and not 6 and not 8? Well, you compute it out. If you take the 3 deities singly and severally, there are only 7 possible expressions, right? It's inherent in the number. Okay. If the essence of the growth of the Supreme is the collaboration between the Supreme Creators and the Paradise deities, and if the 7 master spirits are primarily expressive of the Supreme Creators, and we know this to be a fact, at least in the case of Majeston, then if there is a number which would attach to the Supreme Being, it would be 10, wouldn't it? 7 in relation to 3. Is there any warrant for that? I say yes. Let's take a look at, again, this can be in either of 2 places, doggone it.
Well, there's a lot on 480 on it.
The worlds of the Father contain the potentials of the whole Master Universe. And in discussing the rulers of these worlds, they're discussing the Trinitized secrets of supremacy. And there are 10 Trinitized secrets of supremacy on each of the Father's worlds. You remember Divinington, Sonarrington, so on.
That's page 208.
208, yes. The work of each of these special worlds is divided into 7 major departments, and one of these coordinate rulers presides over each such division of specialized activities. The remaining 3 act as the personal representatives of triune deity in relation to the other 7. 1 representing the Father, 1 the Son, and 1 the Spirit. I think where you encounter the number 10, you encounter the function of the Supreme Being. And let's see if this stands up to logic. Does the number 10 appear prior to the appearance of the Supreme Being? The answer is no. In this calculation. But the number 10 repeats on each of the outer space levels from the 1st to the 4th. And I think it's there because the Supreme Being is functioning. Are you with me? When I first read these numbers, I thought, gee, they make no sense after you go up a little ways. But I got my clue, 70 to 490. It's the square of 7 times 10. And naturally, what do? But you take the cube. This is 7 to the 3rd power times 10. And lastly, 7 to the 4th power times 10. If you have any doubts, multiply it out for yourself. In other words, you multiply 7 by itself 4 times, and then multiply by 10, and the answer is 24,010. So it seems to me that the Supreme Being is a functional reality in all universe ages after the present one. And I would like to refer to them as the post-supreme ages. The Supreme Being functions in the Master Universe. He has 3 levels of function. He functions primarily in Havona as a spirit person. Secondarily, in the grand universe as a personality of power, an evolving sovereign. The tertiary function of the Supreme Being is of master universe scope and is an unknown potential. Master Spirit number 7 is a perfect blend of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. These are the architects. Now, we got into this because we're talking about the first experiential Trinity. And I think it's very significant that the completion of the Master Universe witnesses the appearance of a Trinity. The completion of Havona witnessed the appearance of a Trinity. Now, are we going to get a Trinity every time we complete something?
Yes.
No. There are only 3 Trinities projected. When will the second experiential Trinity appear? Whenever God the Ultimate appears. And when will God the Ultimate appear? Not until the whole Master Universe has been completed.
Throw it too hard.
So we're
I
hoping.
think that you get a nuclear universe every time a Trinity forms. Havona is obviously the nucleus of the grand universe, isn't it? And the Paradise Trinity formed concurrent with the appearance of Havona. I would like to submit that the grand universe, the 7 super universes as dependent on Havona, I'm including the whole thing now, is the second nuclear universe. Because a Trinity forms concurrent with the full appearance of the grand universe. And by full appearance, I mean the perfecting of the grand universe. I think that the grand universe is the nucleus, the true nucleus of the master universe. I think the nucleus must have within it the seeds of growth for the future. And Havona is perfect. Havona basically, inherently, is non-experiential. I think you've got to add an experiential component to existential Havona in order to get a real nucleus for an experiential universe. Are you with me? Consider the argument about what is and what is not a nucleus. I think Havona is a nucleus for the grand universe because, 1, it is central in relation to the cytoplasmic superuniverses. It's the yolk in relation to the white of the egg, and we're out here in the white. 2. 3. Hereditary characteristics are transmitted by it to the superuniverses. This follows the dictionary definition of a nucleus. And I think we're safe if we deal with organic comparisons. I don't like mechanical comparisons. This is not a piece of machinery. This is a living organism. 4. The birth of the Havona nucleus is associated with the birth of a Trinity. And 5th, deity appears whose nature is like the nature of the nucleus. Havona is perfect, so also is the infinite spirit perfect. Now, just stop and say Havona is the nucleus of the master universe. Well, I just don't think it's adequate. Because if a nucleus is to transmit hereditary characteristics, then the nucleus must contain those potentials within it. And certainly even Havona was non-evolutionary until Grand Fanda landed. I would offer this argument in favor of conceiving of the grand universe, the perfected grand universe, as a second nucleus. Now let's see. We've got by our process of reasoning a queer duplication of events, haven't we? We started with two existential deities and a power base. We wind up here with two experiential deities and a power base. I would suggest that these two experiential deities are going to duplicate experientially what the Father and Son did at the beginning of all things. Now, now these deities are not infinite, are they? No. The Father and the Son are. But while these two experiential deities are sub-infinite, they're very great, are they not? Just stop and think. Our local universe is 1/100th part of a little less than 1/7 of the tennis ball. And they have got the moon mobilized. They're able to mobilize the whole of the experiential magnitude of the completed master universe because they grew it and grew with it. And I think what they're going to do is to trinitize. The papers refer to supreme-ultimate as they refer to Father-Son. It's a form of union involving the appearance of an equal being. And what are they going to trinitize? I think they're going to attempt to trinitize God the Absolute. And that throws some light on a very cryptic statement in the foreword. The point I'd like to direct your attention to is on page 16, paragraph 6. The ultimate Trinity, that's the first experiential Trinity, is experientially unifying in completion. We've just been talking about that. And when it finally unifies, the master universe is complete and we have God the ultimate. But we truly doubt the possibility of such full unification of the absolute Trinity. That's the second experiential Trinity. In other words, if the second experiential Trinity could completely unify, they would experientialize God the Absolute out of the Deity Absolute. But if they could do that, they could exhaust infinity. We're in a paradox here, aren't we? Our concept, however, of the eternal paradise Trinity is an ever-present reminder that deity trinitization may accomplish what is otherwise non-attainable. Hence do we postulate the sometime appearance of the Supreme Ultimate and the possible trinitization factualization of God the Absolute. This trinitizing act is symbolized in my mind by the following picture. There are two mighty experiential brothers, a greater and a lesser. They are carrying a stupendous battering ram. This battering ram is the earned experiential sovereignty of the whole master universe. They are approaching a formidable wall that is labeled absolute. And as they arrive before this wall, the ultimate says to the supreme, "Swing hard, brother, we are going through." They know full well that they can never knock this wall down, but they also know that they are going to breach it. Consider, Just consider the massiveness of the battering ram they are swinging, the total vastness of the mighty mobilization of all the experience in the completed master universe. Yes, honey. Look, are we going to be there? I submit yes. And here's my reason. The reason I offer you this speculative thinking is because it's a string on which I've been able to string so many beads in these papers that help illuminate. Page 1226, next to the last paragraph. The type of personality bestowed upon Urantia mortals has a potentiality of 7 dimensions of self-expression or person realization. And don't ask me why it has this, because that's the way God designed it. It comes from Him with these properties. These dimensional phenomena are realizable as 3 on the finite level, first floor. 3 on the absonite level, second floor. And 1 on the absolute level, third floor. This supreme dimension is an associable absolute. And while not infinite, is dimensionally potential for sub-infinite penetration of the absolute. Let's kick that around. We have got the equipment right now necessary when they breach this wall. We can't breach it. Well, we can go through any hole they make. What does sub-infinite penetration of the absolute mean? Well, I use this illustration later on. I can't drink all of the orange juice in the city of Chicago. But that doesn't mean I can't drink some and can't keep on drinking orange juice. Havana is a sub-infinite portrayal of God's concept of an absolutely perfect universe. It isn't infinite, though, is it? It's got an outer edge. I think that we'll be there when this takes place. And I think that it will take place just as sure as the darn thing started. You see, just as Jesus portrays the divine path to God, so the Supreme Being is the pathway from finite limitations to absonite adventures. And so the Supreme and the Ultimate are the pathway to the final adventure, the never-ending attempt to find out more and more and more about God as absolute. This is a growth we can start, and isn't it wonderful that we can never finish it?
Because
Listen, it's sort of like, here, consider a 10-year-old's concept of success, and then a 20-year-old's concept of success, and then a 50-year-old concept of success. And someday we'll be 50 million years old, and someday 50 billion years old. And someday we'll look upon 50 billion years as a very small segment of time. We will be making plans involving units of many times 50 billion years. This is not impossible. Think back in your own experience. When you were a kid, can you remember second or third grade? Hey, do you remember the summer vacations between those school years? How long they were? They were awfully long. Well, when you've lived a billion years, you can think about a billion years. You can think a billion years ahead, can't you? It's in one of the zones on Nether Paradise. This is believed to be the central focalization, the paradise center of the space presence of the unqualified absolute.
Until he comes down into the open and
He also pervades all space, but here's his central focalization.
Now, how could we'd have to...
Dark bodies the same as dark bodies.
What?
If not, what is the difference? I know what you mean.
Okay.
There are two kinds of dark bodies described in these papers. And let's get their technical terminology. 52, they're talking about the two belts of dark gravity bodies surrounding Havona. Now, these dark gravity bodies surrounding Havona are like no other matter anywhere, because they exhibit both linear and circular gravity. They exhibit the kind of gravity that is peculiar to paradise, and they also exhibit the kind of gravity that is like the gravity we know about, straight line gravity. And they're found only in these two belts surrounding the central universe and nowhere else. Now, I believe what this question refers to is another type. On page 173, paragraph 2, there is a term, the dark islands of space. You all know that a sun is tremendously larger than a planet. But when you have a dark, non-luminous, cold body as massive as a sun, then they use this special term for it, a dark island of space. It is a tremendously massive thing. Jupiter would be a peanut alongside of it. It's got the gravity pull of a sun, a blazing sun, but it itself, it may be a burned out sun. That would be one origin of a dark island of space. They use that specialized term to deal with a cold space body whose size is altogether of a larger magnitude than the size of even a big planet. Let's take a quick look at the story of the birth of the Urantia solar system. Massiveness of material creation. Listen, if there are 70,000 aggregations in the first outer space level, each one of which is bigger than a super-universe, what do they mean when they say that more than 50 million years on beyond, in the second outer space level, there are far greater energy activities? Holy smokes. No. We have no data given anywhere as to dimensions of the second outer space level. But we've developed two members of a series, and we can speculate concerning the third member, because 1 is to 100 as 100 is to 10,000. That's just an ordinary proportion. Now, this assumes we recognize a rate of increase. We can have two choices now. Is the increase constant, or is the increase accelerating? Is this thing growing by arithmetic progression or geometric progression? We have absolutely no way of estimating an accelerating factor. We don't know that it isn't accelerating. But since we can't even estimate such a factor, I have elected to speculate on the more conservative side and to assume that the rate of acceleration is the constant rate which we've deduced. So, we draw an inch. Now we've gone from paradise roughly out to the edge of Orvantan. And then we draw 100 inches. Now we've crossed the first outer space level. Now to get across the second outer space level, we draw 10,000 inches. Remember, this is only the linear relationship. The cubic relationship is something else again. And I got tired of multiplying at this point, so I didn't work it out. If you represent the grand universe by a 2-inch circle, the first outer space level goes out around 8 feet. And the second outer space level goes out around 800 feet.
From 2-inch.
That's right. Of course, it goes in both directions that far. I'm just going out in one direction. It keeps it simpler. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be.
Let's tack, yes.
You're talking about just from the center across the ring, not
Sure.
all the way
Oh
across.
no, I'm just
the
going,
diameter.
I'm going out in a straight line
It's
from the
the
center.
radius.
We're dealing with radiuses
Yeah,
here.
radius. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
The diameter is twice this number.
Yeah.
How big is the third outer space level? Well, if we have an inch, 8 feet, 800 feet, then we can project the distance across the third outer space level as 80,000 feet. Just to make it easy to figure, let's take a mile at 5,000 feet instead of 5,280. And we can see that the third outer space level is 16 miles across.
From 1 inch.
Orvantan is an inch across. The third outer space level is 16 miles across.
That doesn't account for that dead space between.
I'm just ignoring it. It's small in relation to the whole.
Does the space between stay the same between each one? Or?
We have no way of knowing. I would say not. I think that the quiet zones get bigger, farther across.
Probably have to move the sound.
Well,
Pretty scared.
how about the fourth outer space level? Let's just summarize it. If the grand universe is a 2-inch circle, the first outer level is 8 feet out, farther out, or a 16-foot circle. The second outer level is 800 feet farther out, or a 1,600-foot circle. The third outer level is 16 miles farther out, or a 32-mile circle. Then the fourth outer level is 1,600 miles out, or a circle 3,200 miles in diameter. You know, I want to tell you, the weekend I worked out these numbers, I damn near dropped my teeth on the desk. Now,